The day I received a $10,000 fine from the HOA for grass that was supposedly too tall was the day everything changed. That fine was the spark that lit a fire they never saw coming. I decided right then and there to turn my 20-acre property on the Texas border into the most impressive outdoor shooting range in the region, situated just 800 feet from the backyard of our HOA president, Evelyn Monroe. What they didn't know was that I held a law degree, had a background in special forces, and this land was the last piece of my grandfather's legacy, a man who fought for this country with everything he had. There was no way I was going to let a group of self-important, suit-wearing busybodies take that from me. When I opened the letter, printed on cream-colored paper with the Clear Ridge HOA letterhead, I could feel my blood pressure rising with every word. $10,000 because my grass was allegedly 2 inches over some arbitrary height limit? It wasn't the first notice I had received. They'd sent others before, complaints about my American flag being too prominent, my truck being an eyesore, and my small collection of military memorabilia not aligning with the community aesthetic. Each violation carried increasing fines, but this one took the cake. I crumpled the letter and tossed it onto the kitchen counter, where it landed among a pile of similar notices that had arrived over the last 3 months. It made no sense. I'd lived here for 5 years with hardly any interaction with the HOA. Now, all of a sudden, I was their #1 target. The land had been in my family since the 1960s, long before Clear Ridge was ever even imagined. Developers had somehow convinced my grandfather to include the front 5 acres of the property in their new suburban dream, but the remaining 15 acres remained free and clear of any HOA nonsensia detail I was growing more grateful for by the minute. That evening around 7 p.m. there was a knock at the door. It was my neighbor, Thomas Kim, a math teacher from the high school 2 properties over. Quiet guy, decent neighbor. He looked nervous, glancing over his shoulder like he was worried about being seen. "You got a minute?" he asked. I invited him in, offered him a beer he politely declined, and waited while he collected his thoughts. "You need to know something," he said finally. At the last HOA meeting, after most folks had left, Evelyn Monroe said, and I quote, "We need to make it so expensive for Dalton that he has no choice but to sell." Dalton, that's me. I stared at Thomas, letting the weight of those words sink in. "They're targeting you," he added. "And it has nothing to do with grass height." Later that night, I pulled up the county records and started digging. Didn't take long to find the smoking gun. Monroe Development Group, owned by Evelyn's husband, Richard, had filed preliminary plans for a luxury lakeside resort. The proposed location? My land, or at least what they hoped would be their land. With its clear view of the lake and mountains, it was prime real estate, and they were willing to play dirty to get it. The next evening was the monthly HOA meeting. I hadn't attended in years, but I pressed my best shirt, shined my old combat boots, and walked into the community center like I was walking into enemy territory. Evelyn Monroe sat dead center at the board table. Her blonde hair was pulled into a tight bun, designer glasses perched on her nose. She faltered mid-sentence when she saw me take a seat in the front row. "Mr. Dalton," she said, her voice faux sweet. "What a surprise. We were just discussing the landscaping issues on Lake Ridge Drive." "I'm sure you were," I said, matching her tone. "I'd like to talk about the recent string of harassment disguised as HOA violations against my property." A murmur rolled through the room. I looked around. Neighbors. Some I knew well. Some I'd nodded at in passing. Most of them looked confused. I laid out a timeline of the violations. Photos. Contradictions. All neatly organized. My old college friend, Danielle Morales, now a property attorney, had helped me prepare. Evelyn's facade cracked the moment I mentioned the resort development. "That project is in preliminary stages. It has nothing to do with HOA business," she snapped. But the damage was done. Faces shifted. Realization set in. This wasn't about community standards. It was about greed. She tried another angle. "Your property has become an eyesore. The military flags and the old memorabilia. Some residents have expressed concern about, well, your background." There it was. The veiled implication that because I was a veteran, I was somehow unstable. "Mrs. Monroe," I said evenly, "if you're questioning my mental fitness because I served my country, you should choose your next words very carefully." Silence. Her smile froze, and she backtracked quickly. But the mask had slipped. Everyone saw it. After the meeting, she approached me. Smile back in place. Eyes cold. If you can't pay the fines and follow the rules, we'll place a lien on your property, Mr. Dalton. Nobody wants to live next to someone like you. I leaned in close. You're underestimating me, Mrs. Monroe. I know the law. That night, I called Danielle. I've been waiting for someone to challenge these people, she said. You ready to go to war? She examined the property records. Confirmed it. Only the front 5 acres were subject to HOA rules. The rest? Untouchable. But then she found something more. A boundary modification from 3 years earlier, pushed through without proper consent. Possibly invalid. We dug deeper. Turns out, Monroe Development had pulled this game before. In multiple neighborhoods. And Evelyn herself? Had a buried embezzlement scandal from a decade ago. Sheriff Dean Mercer was my next call. He'd been friends with my grandfather. Be careful, he warned. Evelyn is loud. But Richard? He's the dangerous one. That's when I got my idea. The back 15 acres bordered the Monroe's mansion. Beautiful lakeside estate with an infinity pool. Texas law was very clear about what was permitted on private, unincorporated land. I made 3 calls. Danielle for legal clearance, Ryan Simonson, old Army buddy who ran a shooting range in Austin, and the county clerk to file a permit. Caldwell Tactical Range, Training Center, Veteran Support, Community Education. All legal. And all very noisy. Within days, I was clearing the land, drawing up plans, and reaching out to local veterans groups. It took 3 days for Evelyn to show up. Her Mercedes skidded to a stop. You can't build a shooting range here. Actually, I replied, smiling. I can. I already filed. Want to see the paperwork? The next HOA meeting was packed. Evelyn tried to spin it. Safety, noise, kids. I calmly explained that it was legal, safe, and outside HOA reach. Neighbors started speaking up, including Thomas. The tide turned. The following day, Richard Monroe showed up at my door. Calm. Diplomatic. Twice market value, he offered. Cash. No strings. This isn't just land to me, I replied. It's legacy. His smile dropped. You're making a mistake. You already did. You picked the wrong guy to push. And just like that, the war escalated.